Have you ever wondered what makes a face attractive? In this video, we'll analyze 3 female faces, create personalized guides on how each can enhance their appearance, and finish with photo edits to show what's visually possible. On to face number 1. Welcome to Chadify, where the purpose is to help others. Our content is never meant to put anyone down. Instead, our resources serve as objective guides in physical self-improvement. We will examine 4 main aspects of each face and assess attractiveness based on optimal mathematical criteria for each category. As you may have noticed, all 3 faces come from different ethnic and genetic backgrounds. Each requires its own set of criteria, otherwise the analysis would be inaccurate. Face number 1 appears to be a blend of South Mongolian and Siberian influences, creating an East Asian facial appearance. This means her evaluation will be based on the established ideals of beauty among highly attractive women from these regions, allowing her traits to be assessed within the proper ethnic context. An example of a phenotypic trait that face number 1 has is very tanned skin. Secondly, mottled eyes. She has a flat nose bridge. All 3 of these traits match her ethnicity, boosting her general attractiveness. So on to her strongest features. First of all, she has positive canthal tilt, which looks absolutely incredible. Secondly, she has a downward pointing medial canthus of the eye, which plays into that positive canthal tilt. Additionally, she has full lips, and she's a compact midface of 0.95 height to 1 width. And finally, she has high-set cheekbones. Now on to her main weaknesses. First of all, she has a flat jaw frontal angle of 102 degrees. Typically, this should be about a right angle. Secondly, she has a short face of 1.24 length to 1 width. Additionally, she has unbalanced facial thirds with a much shorter upper third relative to her middle third. This might seem like her midface is a bit long, but in reality, face number 1 has a very feminized lower third and a very short upper third, resulting in this slightly longer than ideal middle third, kind of throwing things off ever so slightly. Not a huge issue, but something worth noting. Additionally, she has small eye size of 131% of the middle portion between the eyes. Typically, you want this to be a little closer to 100, maybe 120, but there's some leeway here because of her given ethnicity, as East Asians typically have smaller eyes. In her case, it's just a little bit too excessive. And finally, she has a wider jaw and a shorter chin. It kind of flares out a bit on the edges there of the gonian, while the chin doesn't extend quite as far out, creating this very short lower third. So on to dimorphism. Dimorphism refers to the balance of masculinity and femininity in a face. Humans are polymorphic, meaning we all display dimorphic traits that vary in their degree of masculinity to femininity. Masculine features often include a pronounced jaw or deep-set eyes, while feminine features are typically characterized by softer contours like a rounder brow ridge. An example of a dimorphic trait that face number 1 has is a soft jaw contour. It looks very feminine. Additionally, her eye-eyebrow distance is very high, which is a feminizing trait. Thirdly, she has plump cheekbones, which makes a neotenous, youthful face appearance. And she has very youthful, young, elastic-looking skin. Tie this all together, and you get a face that has very low dimorphism with high neoteny. Symmetry. So let's take a look at the left side of her face mirrored. Now let's plot some key points, and then let's overlay the right onto it to see the distance of each of these points from one another. As you can see, these little white lines can showcase the fact there's very little asymmetry. Like, this is so minimal, it could even come down to measurement error. Let's look at the right side of her face now mirrored and do the same practice. When we mirror it, it looks very similar. So here are the right key landmarks of the face overlaid, and then we're going to look at the left to right overlay difference, and you can see those white lines, very small differences. You might not even be able to see it that easily on your screen. She has high bilateral symmetry, a very good thing to have. Face number 1 is very attractive. Her face is definitely teetering on the 7 out of 10 level of attractiveness, which is a very strong 6, effectively rounded up to a 7. Now, we analyze facial attractiveness because we want to help people improve, because their potential is always higher than their current state. It's very rare to be maxing out your facial attractiveness potential. We think face number 1 has the potential to be an 8 out of 10, if not higher, in terms of facial attractiveness. Time to Stacify. Let's max out her facial attractiveness. Boom. Wow. What a beautiful face. Highlights and lighter hair. Not saying that this is optimal, but it's something to look at. And then we got iris enlargement, which can be done with contact lenses. Not saying that she necessarily needs to do that, but it is a potential thing that a lot of Asian women do, make them look a little bit bigger. Can you spot the difference between the two photos here? Makeup. Makeup plays a significant role towards female facial attractiveness and allows women to add multiple points of attractiveness in a matter of under 30 minutes given the right circumstances and the right techniques. In this case, we're looking at two different styles of makeup. On the left, we're looking at a Eurocentric bias, where we're applying a sharper contour to the nose, thicker eyebrows, and longer eyelashes. On the right, we're doing an East Asian bias, which involves an inverted contour, which actually involves making the sides of the nose lighter. This is the opposite of what most people do, and making the central part darker to make the nose look much flatter. It's incredibly rare to see Asian girls do this online because they're always going for that Eurocentric look. In reality, the East Asian bias, given their genetic and phenotypic background, actually makes more sense to do and is more attractive given that. Of course, to a degree, it will come down to personal preference. So how do we achieve her stasification? Well, here is a quick breakdown. The highest priority in her case is increasing the volume of her hair and pushing it back. This will allow her upper third to look much bigger, making her face look longer, and balancing out the thirds of her face, preventing that look of having just such a small upper third relative to her middle and lower thirds of the face. Thicker lower set brows are also ideal in her situation. This isn't because we want to increase her masculine dimorphism, it's rather to add a little bit more thickness because they're on slightly the thinner side of optimal. This also applies for eyelashes. We want to add a bit of eyelashes so the eyes look a little bit bigger. Finally, a slightly thinner gonian, which is possible through just natural techniques like going to the gym, leaning out just a little bit more, will look good in her case. We don't want drastic changes here. We simply want a little bit more of a narrow appearance if possible. And finally, nasolabial softening, just a tiny bit of folding there, just bringing it even more to the youthful side is ideal. Face number 1 has very little things to actually do here, and most of them come down to styling and aesthetic changes or natural lifestyle changes as well, makeup and good long-term habits. Now you may be wondering, how attractive are you? It's one thing to see examples on your screen, but where do you personally stand? Whether you're male or female, we can absolutely help you. We're excited to announce the launch of the newly updated Chadify.me. By breaking down your facial structure across 99 and counting mathematical measured attributes, giving you a clear objective picture of where you stand, honing in on things like hairstyle, eye color, jaw structure, mid-face ratio, and things you may not even know about just yet. We also provide dimorphic and phenotypic analysis so you can understand not just the what, but the deeper why behind your features. And we build personalized roadmaps for improvement, from natural approaches like specific makeup techniques to professional options designed to fit your goals. From essential analysis all the way up to our signature ultimate Chadification experience with photo edits and morphs to showcase what's visually possible and progress tracking. Plus, every package comes with a free 9-page portrait guide, helping you take flattering, high-quality photos for your analysis, as photos matter more than ever in today's digital world. Face number 2. Let's get into her ethnicity. She looks to be a blend of the Ethiopian ethnicities of East Africa and the Sudanese ethnicities of the Sudan Belt. One of her main phenotypic traits is her dark, vibrant skin. It totally suits her ethnic blend. Additionally, she has full lips, and she has dark hair and dark eyes. All suit her phenotype blend. On to her strongest facial features, independent of phenotype. Equal facial thirds of length. Unlike face number 1, this is an incredible balance of 32% upper third, 34% middle third, and 34% lower third. Sometimes female faces look a little bit better when the lower third is slightly less than the middle and upper thirds. That creates a more feminized appearance. However, for face number 2, this isn't a big deal because equal is the second best thing. 1% deviations mean nothing. Additionally, she's an ideal jaw frontal angle of 88%. Like I said before, a right angle is optimal for this measurement. She has ideal eye spacing of 111% of one eye with the part in the middle area there. Anything near 100% is very attractive. And she has an ES ratio of 0.47. This is good eye spacing. She has excellent lip proportions with a 2/3 to 1 upper lip to lower lip ratio. Face number 2 has an excellent face height to width of 1.36 length to 1 width, and she has a feminized chin contour. On to her weaknesses. Face number 2 has lower scleral show, and this plays a tremendous role in the way her eye area looks. Secondly, she's an overly round eye shape of 2 width to 1 height, which creates a slightly bulbous appearance. She has high upper eyelid exposure, and she has close-set eyebrows, which are slightly asymmetric. Moving on, she has a slightly long philtrum of 1.7 chin length to 1 philtrum length. Typically, we like to see this closer to the 2 to 1 region, sometimes a bit above it. For African ethnicities, there is some leeway here, but she's just slightly too on the long philtrum side. And finally, her ears stick out slightly, especially that right ear. So on to face number 2's dimorphic analysis. She's a narrowing lower third. For men, typically we don't want much of this. We want a wider gonian. But for women, having a bit of a narrowing lower third can create a more feminized appearance. Additionally, she has round eye shape, which is also very feminized. Less of a flaw for women than it is for men. Moving on, she has a feminized chin contour, but she has relatively low eyebrow distance, which creates a more masculine appearance for that specific trait. This means she has low to moderate dimorphism, not quite as low as face number 1. On to symmetry for face number 2. So let's take a look at the left side of her face mirrored. Bit of a difference here, but not bad. Let's add the facial landmarks for the left side, and now let's overlay the right. The deviations in these black lines are a little bit longer than we saw previously with face number 1. Some of these ear ones are very long. The eyebrow one, where there's that noticeable asymmetry, upper eyelid exposure to some degree. The jaw structure isn't bad though. Let's now take a look at the right side of the face mirrored. See the landmarks, overlay the left. Again, some long lines. Therefore, moderate bilateral symmetry. A slightly less symmetric face than face number 1. Everybody has some asymmetries, and it can add uniqueness to our faces, so this isn't the end of the world. So face number 2 scores a little bit lower in terms of facial attractiveness than face number 1. And in fact, she's still above average, scoring at a mid to high 5 range. Many people are going to think that this might be a little bit harsh. Ultimately, the average rating is a 5. And this means that both of the faces we've already analyzed today are above average, with one of them being very much above average. Now, the beautiful thing is that the rating is just a transitory number. And as face number 2 works on herself, she is going to improve to her actual potential. And that's the point of Chadify, or if you want to call it Stacify. We want to bring people up to their potential attractiveness to increase their confidence and make their lives even better. And we believe that this plays a massive role in society today. So time to Stacify face number 2. Let's bring her up to her truly optimized facial attractiveness. Wow. beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and longer hair. It increases the feminine dimorphism. So back to her before, let's take a look at her cross-section before and after, and all the potential procedures that face number 2 can do to achieve her optimized physical appearance. We got a little bit more going on here. The most high priority thing, much longer, natural hair. I don't want to see her straightening out her hair against her ethnic or phenotypic background. Let's play into it because that's what will make her even more attractive, and those curls look beautiful and luscious, all grown out. So that's the first thing, add that nice flowing hair. Then let's get those lashes far longer to cover up that high upper eyelid exposure and to make her eyes look a little bit less round. Now, I didn't write this in here, but technically lower eyelid filler or even some surgical procedures could be done to bring that lower eyelid a bit higher to make the sclera show less prominent. But this is a relatively optional thing in her case, and I think having longer eyelashes could solve some of it, especially if she curls them. Pinning in her ears, especially that right ear, is key to get rid of that asymmetry. A slight lip lift will improve her chin philtrum ratio, and under eye concealer will help tremendously for that slight eye bag appearance. I didn't say it was a weakness or anything when we analyzed her face, but it's definitely not fully optimized. Refining the medial eyebrow regions would be ideal for more symmetry, as well as getting that medial canthus of the eye lined up with the eyebrows better because they were close set. And finally, skincare to make the skin overall more attractive. That might even fix the eye bag slightly. Fitness, getting things more tight, the tissues, having a proper diet, and sleeping regularly and consistently will all play a massive role on her facial attractiveness going forward so she can ascend to her potential. And on to face number 3. Face number 3 looks to be a blend of the Dinaric and Atlantic ethnicities of Europe. The Dinaric Alps are characterized by slightly sharper features and a larger nose, which is often hooked, and the Atlantic ethnicities are typically characterized by bright blue eyes, darker hair, or auburn hair. For face number 3, her phenotypic traits which align with her given phenotype or ethnic blend involve bright blue eyes, which definitely suit her well. You can make the argument that there's a ring in the center of hazelish color. A lot of people with blue and green eyes have this characterization, but that still is blue eyes overall. And she has lighter skin. And finally, she has a slightly hooked nose. Now, this is very difficult to assess strictly from the front view. If we wanted to do a fully accurate analysis of her situation, we would require the side view to determine if this is actually the case, but it looks quite apparent. So moving on to her strongest features, the first of which being those blue eyes. They just look excellent. Secondly, she has a well-formed Cupid's bow. Her upper lip has that nice contour. It's not flat, it's not too curvy, and the white portion of her eyes is very illuminated. There's a very good product that I would recommend called Lumify, which I personally use to brighten the sclera. If you didn't sleep well the night before, she likely doesn't require it. And so on to her weaknesses facially. First of all, she does have a very long leptorine nose with a nasal index of 62. Having a thin nose is not a bad thing necessarily, but it's that size. It occupies a lot of her midface. It's just incredibly long. And this leads directly into having a long chin philtrum ratio because her philtrum looks incredibly short relative to her chin. Typically, you would want this to be 2.5 at most, if not 2.1 or 2 to 1 for most women. Women typically look a little bit worse with larger chins than men. Thirdly, she is negative canthal tilt with -2 degrees and -3 degrees in her left and right eyes. You want to have at least neutral canthal tilt or positive canthal tilt to prevent a tired and droopy appearance. She has a high forehead and she has thin and light eyebrows. And finally, face number 3 has slightly thin lips. Onto her dimorphism. Is she pretty or more masculine? We're gonna find out. This is actually a feminizing trait. Having a slightly round forehead, and many people don't realize this that are women, but having it rounder in appearance versus more squared off is a sign of femininity. This is good. Secondly, the large chin. So this totally counteracts femininity in an incredibly masculinizing trait. I mean, most men don't even have chin-philtrum ratios in this territory. Additionally, the chin itself is just simply oversized in many dimensions, as noted with their contour there. Her long and relatively oversized nose is quite masculinizing, and her slightly thin lips are relatively masculine as well. Fuller, thicker, plumper lips are a feminizing or prettier dimorphic trait. This means, overall, she has high masculine dimorphism, which is typically the opposite of what you would desire as a female. On to symmetry for face number 3. Let's get into it. Here is her left side mirrored. Here are the points. So now we can actually see the deviations of some of the key landmarks we typically use here. Now we're going to take a look at her right side of her face mirrored. I would argue her left side mirrored is more attractive than her right side. So something interesting to note is, I'm just going to put my cursor here, as you can see her chin isn't perfectly aligned. There actually is some deviation in the vertical plane of the face here near the chin. Like, it's not entirely straight. You can see how her hairline, all these points here are pretty aligned overall, but as it works itself down here, you can look at the lips here. There's this distance that gets very accentuated, the chin, meaning that it's kind of growing off a little bit, it's coning out, and that's not ideal. Additionally, you can see the lines here. There's moderate bilateral symmetry, average overall. So let's see her rating. Face number 1, face number 2, face number 3. You can see that face number 1 currently is the most attractive out of the 3 different faces, as noted through all of those 4 different things we looked at: phenotypic analysis, feature analysis, dimorphic analysis, and finally symmetric analysis. Face number 3 is around a low 4 out of 10, maybe a high 3, but I wouldn't put her that low because I think she does have some good features. This bell curve here represents the frequency of different ratings or scores of facial attractiveness people obtain. Most people reside in the 4 to 6 range. Face number 3 and face number 2 both fall into this main area of our bell curve. Obviously, we will all have our own personal preferences towards attractiveness, meaning some people might find face number 2 relatively similar to face number 1, and vice versa. Some people might think face number 2 is lower and face number 3 is slightly higher. But if you take a very mathematical approach, you can really hone in on the scores and then present them with literal blueprints to physically self-improve going forward. And that leads us directly into the potential of face number 3, which we deem in the 7+ area, maybe even higher. The difference that she could achieve is actually higher than face number 1 and 2, despite having a lower initial starting point. So time to Stacify face number 3. Let's bring her up to her fully tapped out potential for facial attractiveness. Wow. That's a beautiful face right there. Some people might look at this and think you took this to a level which is unachievable. And honestly, I disagree. And that's why we're going to take a look at the cross-sectional difference and outline exactly what she can do to achieve this look. So first of all, lower hairline, higher volume. Contrary to popular belief, getting a hairline lowering is not male-centric. In fact, women get it all the time. Whether it's a hair transplant, where they take grafts of hair from the back of your head and they put them into the front, or if it is simply a surgical procedure to lower the forehead, will totally improve her facial attractiveness. We don't want to remove that rounded off hairline, we just want to lower it down a bit, and of course, thicken up the hair. The hair color actually suits her as long as she looks into getting a minimal tan. Some natural sun exposure is good for your body, but doing it in excess might not be optimal, and there are fake tanners and bronzers and different skincare products you can even use to accentuate skin tone. Like, it's very common. Proper skincare overall, having a good routine, is also key. Darker, thicker eyebrows, whether she draws them on, whether she gets rapid brow or some specific serums to do this, the medial portion of the eyebrow could even be lowered a bit, creating a more neutral tilt versus that negative eyebrow tilt that she currently has. Face number 3's eye area is one of the biggest issues currently. She needs longer eyelashes to cover up some of that moderate upper eyelid exposure, and she definitely needs to look into eyeliner. Ideally, the entire eye should have a ton of eyeliner if she's going out and she wants to look her best, because this can mimic having a more positive canthal tilt and combat that very negative canthal tilt she currently has, as well as make the eyes simply look bigger and pop more, really highlighting the fact that she has a great strong point being that lighter sclera. If she wants to look into a slightly more permanent or surgical method here, canthoplasty is a great investment. This can allow the eye shape to look more positively tilted, less droopy, and completely solve that current issue that she has. We would never suggest rhinoplasty to someone that's ethnically diverse in appearance. Perhaps they have a slight dorsal hump, if the facial harmony is great. But when the facial harmony is lacking, in her case, unfortunately, I would say that is the case. Sometimes addressing a weak point like this genuinely has a tremendous impact on facial attractiveness. And this would open up the door to getting lip filler, because if you get lip filler without this rhinoplasty, the philtrum is just going to look even smaller. So getting the nose up so that you can plump up the lips a ton will combat having a large chin and a large nose. Ultimately, all of these tactics can holistically combine, creating an incredibly attractive looking individual. And this is why, even if you start below average in attractiveness, there are just so many ways to improve going forward. So finally, there are some limitations. This analysis is based solely on front view photographs. While high in quality, they provide only a partial perspective of facial structure. Additionally, this analysis was performed without knowing the individual's age or genetic background. Moving on, every client has unique goals and comfort levels. Some prefer only natural or lifestyle-based methods like skincare, grooming, and fitness, while others are open to professional or surgical approaches. This is a sample analysis designed for demonstration purposes. At Chadify.me, every order includes a free portrait guide to ensure correct photo selection. Combined with personal details and preferences, this allows us to deliver a completely tailored evaluation that goes far beyond only a front view analysis. So the final thing is, you might look at Chadify.me and think they only serve the male demographic. In reality, this is not the case. We've served a lot of female clients in the past, but we haven't made any content for women simply because we didn't have any time to yet. And so this is the first video. I'm very excited to see the response. I'm very excited to get more women interested in what we have to offer. We serve all clients, whether you're female or male. We are designed to be incredibly custom oriented, meaning whatever your goals, just tell us when you place an order and we will ensure the satisfaction of your needs. So thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.